welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we've compiled a really fascinating and I think quite unusual stack of source material for you.
Yeah, it's definitely unique.
We're looking at this philosophical dialogue, a pretty profound exchange about suffering, meaning of life, ethical choices.
But it's woven together almost seamlessly with real-time, high-stakes poker coaching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's quite the mix.
It really is. You've got this existential level, thinking about, well, suffering and how we live, placed right next to the super intense, micro decision-making you need in a big poker tournament.
And we're following this author and coach. He wrote Stoic Samurai, The Way of the Stoic Diamond, as he mentors his student, Norman.
Right.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward, really. We want to unpack this rare blend. We want to show how these Stoic principles, emotional intelligence, resilience, that kind of laser focus, they aren't just, abstract tools for getting through life. They're actually sharp, tactical weapons you can bring to any high-pressure competitive situation.
Like where Marcus Aurelius meets the river card you said earlier.
Exactly. We're going to show you that connection.
Okay, so to start, we really have to begin where the coaching session itself began, which is right at the foundation of, well, human experience. Section 1, the subjective scale of human suffering.
Yeah, the coach set this core philosophical challenge right out of the gate. How much suffering is actually involved in life? Define it.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. The exercise seems simple, but it's instantly revealing. Rate your suffering, 0 to 10.
0, meaning total contentment, no internal struggle. 10 is, well, the absolute maximum unbearable pain you can imagine.
And this isn't just rating a bad week, right?
No. It's grading the fundamental human condition as you experience it.
And the results. From Norman and his friend Mikhail, they were just wildly different, which immediately tells you something about how subjective this is.
So Norman first. He's the student. And despite admitting, he's had significant pain, past challenges, he tentatively lands on a very low rating.
Yeah, what was it?
A 2 out of 10 for the baseline of human suffering.
A 2. Wow, that sounds incredibly optimistic, especially for someone digging into these deep philosophical texts.
Right, but his reasoning, it's pure practical philosophy. Norman basically sees suffering as mostly temporary.
Okay.
Or self-created, through bad choices or what he calls unnatural living. His idea is if you live rationally, aligned with nature and reason, suffering gets minimized.
That really is the core of classical Stoicism, isn't it? The idea that most of our suffering comes from our own flawed judgment.
But hang on, if Norman's aiming for this, 210 existence, is that genuine mastery? Or could it be a kind of intellectual denial?
That's a fair question. If his past pain was truly deep, how does he process it down to a 2 so readily?
Does he just have a naturally lower emotional baseline? Or has he trained himself really rigorously? The source doesn't spell it out completely.
But the contrast with his friend Mikhail really highlights how unusual Norman's perspective might be.
Absolutely. Mikhail rated human suffering much, much higher, an 8 out of 10.
Okay, that jump from 2 to 8, that's huge. It's like two completely different operating systems for viewing the world, right there in the same conversation.
And the crucial bit here is Mikhail's context. The coach asked him to rate his external life conditions, specifically Switzerland, where he lives.
Man.
Mikhail gives Switzerland a 10 out of 10, a perfect external environment.
Wow. Okay, that detail, that's incredibly powerful evidence for this section.
Right. Mikhail's basically saying, look, I live somewhere with perfect external stability, safety, prosperity, a 10 out of 10 country, and yet my internal baseline experience of just being alive is an 8 out of 10 struggle.
Yeah. The source uses that exact point to really drive home the main idea. External conditions, even if they seem objectively perfect, they just can't necessarily fix internal pain.
For someone like Mikhail, the struggle is, well, it seems fundamentally spiritual or psychological, maybe historical. The problem isn't the world outside.
The problem is inside. And interestingly, the coach, the author himself, actually related more to Mikhail. He mentioned his own suffering in earlier life stages was somewhere between a 7 and a 9.
So you've got these three perspectives,
Yeah.
2 high, 1 low, all wrestling with the same basic question about life's difficulty.
And that huge range, that 2 to 8 gap, it really forces the conclusion, which is our key insight 1. Personal suffering is profoundly subjective.
Yeah.
Someone operating at an 8 needs a very different set of tools, different coping mechanisms than someone at a 2.
And it's not just about circumstances.
No, it's much more influenced by, well, mindset, personal history, temperament, and, crucially, your underlying philosophy. If you believe suffering is a choice, maybe linked to unnatural living.
Then you'll likely experience less of it when you feel you're living naturally. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
It really challenges the idea that external success or wealth guarantees internal peace. You can be, winning on paper, living in that 10-10 country.
And still be fighting an 8-10 battle inside every day.
Exactly. That insight, that internal temperament, often dictates the experience that logically pushes us towards the next section. Section 2, acceptance, critique, and the ethics of life's gift.
Right. So we shift now from that really personal measure of suffering to how someone should interact with the bigger picture, the social systems around them.
The discussion kicked off with a debate about social structures and whether we should critique them. The source mentions a specific Buddhist video, apparently quite critical of modern society.
And Mikhail, our 810 guy, found this video life-changing.
Right. But Norman, the 210 guy, he was pretty neutral about the video's message.
And this neutrality, it kind of flows into his developing attitude, which is more about acceptance than constant judgment or trying to incite revolution.
Exactly. Norman's trying to practice a sort of intellectual quietism, maybe. He's striving to just live without constantly needing to label everything, social structures, events, as inherently good or bad, right or wrong.
He wants to save that mental energy, maybe. The energy usually spent on social critique.
Yeah, he used a great metaphor for it, seeing himself as a fish swimming in the stream. His focus is on adapting to the current, understanding its force, its direction, rather than trying to, fundamentally change the whole river. That's the job he sees for revolutionaries.
But then you have to ask, right, is this acceptance genuine stoicism, or is it maybe closer to intellectual complacency?
It's a valid question. If everyone just becomes a fish in the stream, how does necessary change actually happen?
The source seems to suggest it's about that dichotomy of control again. Norman's realizing that trying to critique the massive global stream of society is often outside his direct control.
And therefore maybe an unproductive drain on his energy and focus.
It's like the ultimate amor fati, isn't it? Loving your fate, not necessarily enjoying every bad thing, but understanding that the external reality of the stream's current is largely fixed.
And the only real freedom is in the internal response, how skillfully the fish swims.
Right. And focusing on that acceptance, it frees up a lot of mental bandwidth.
And that freed up bandwidth allowed the conversation to go even deeper, into really heavy ethical territory.
They moved from social critique straight into this profound spiritual question about agency over life itself, specifically the ethics around suicide and the idea of life as a gift.
Yeah, this is obviously very heady, very nuanced philosophical ground, and the source was careful to outline different viewpoints.
So viewpoint A, drawing from a Buddhist guru perspective, strongly argues that life is a divine or sacred gift.
Right, and therefore intentionally ending that life could be seen as an act of profound ingratitude for that sacred gift.
That view emphasizes the sacredness of existence itself and the potential for enlightenment, which obviously requires you to continue the life journey.
But then the coach introduced a counterpoint, viewpoint B, focusing more on autonomy.
Okay.
He suggested that maybe returning the gift of life under circumstances that feel truly subjectively unbearable, maybe that isn't necessarily ingratitude. Perhaps it could be seen as a natural or even compassionate exercise of ultimate personal agency.
The tension there is really about ownership, isn't it? Does the individual own their life, or does the entity that gifted it?
And it forces you to define unbearable. If someone consistently rates their internal suffering at an 8, and then external events push it permanently past 9 or 10,
Does their right to control their own existence maybe override the philosophical obligation to honor the gift? It's a tough question.
it brings up the whole philosophical idea of sovereignty. For a Stoic, agency, control over your own intentions, judgments, character, that's paramount. And that agency can be maintained even when facing death.
To really illustrate the difference between, say, giving up out of despair versus exercising philosophical agency, the source used that extreme historical example, the Vietnamese monks who self-immolated.
Yeah, that example is critical because the source stresses this wasn't an act born from emotional collapse or hopelessness.
No. It stemmed from deliberate intention and control. It was a planned, spiritual act of protest, demonstrating immense inner strength, not just despair.
So the lesson there, which we have to report impartially, is about the distinction. The difference between a collapse where you lose control and a decision made with complete mental clarity and fortitude.
Those monks, through their intentional control over the act itself, arguably showed the highest level of Stoic mastery, maintaining agency even over their final moments.
And that high bar of control, that ability to manage intention and focus under absolute pressure, that's the perfect bridge to Section 3, the applied Stoic mindset at the poker table.
Yeah, because if you can maintain intention during a philosophical crisis, you should theoretically be able to keep it together when the flop doesn't go your way.
Exactly. The transition works because the high-stakes poker table is just a constant test of internal control versus external randomness and chaos.
And the source starts this section not with fancy strategies, but with the basics, the non-strategic hurdles. Norman was apparently struggling quite a bit with the practical setup.
Oh, yeah. Like a...
Couldn't find the all-in buttons easily, was getting confused by the blind structures, hadn't set up his hotkeys properly, the essential tools.
Ah, okay. That's a classic recipe for tilt right there, when the tools themselves feel like they're failing you.
Instantly, you start doubting your actual skill, right?
Yeah.
I remember trying to give a presentation once, and the software just wouldn't load. That sheer mechanical failure made me feel totally incompetent, even though I knew the material inside out.
That feeling, that technical glitch suddenly clouding your self-judgment. That's exactly what the coach addressed immediately.
The Stoic advice was right on point. Don't let these external, temporary technical issues define your self-worth or mess with your assessment of your actual poker ability.
And Norman seemed to get it. He internalized it by saying something like, "Today is not a representation of my poker skill."
Perfect. That's classic Stoicism. Separating the self from the outcome, or in this case, the technical difficulty. The missing hockey doesn't erase hours of study. It just means the setup wasn't right today.
So once that mental and technical foundation was kind of reset, the coach moved on to specific betting strategy insights, and the feedback got pretty detailed.
Starting with betting sizing. Apparently, Norman had a tendency to bluff too big sometimes.
Ah, okay. That shows maybe a lack of chip economy,
Yeah.
which can be a huge leak in tournament poker.
Definitely. Why risk a huge chunk of your stack on a bluff if a smaller, more credible bet achieves the same result getting a fold?
Overbetting like that can signal weakness or maybe desperation. Good players pick up on that fast.
Right. The second key tactical point was about being cautious with short stacks at the table.
This is where it gets into slightly higher level game theory. The coach advised being careful not to raise when opponents are extremely short stacked. He specifically mentioned a player with only 7 BB.
Okay, let's break down that jargon 7 BB. BB is big blind, the minimum bet in a round. 7 big blinds. That's a really, really short stack in a tournament.
Very short. 7 big blinds is often seen as the point where a player has almost no fold equity left.
Fold equity being the chance your bet makes them fold.
Exactly. At 7BB, the math, often guided by something called Nash equilibrium, basically says the short-stacked player is incentivized to just go all in with a very wide range of hands.
Because they have little left to lose,
Yeah.
and the pot size looks attractive compared to their tiny stack.
Right. So if that opponent is likely to shove, regardless of what you do, raising preflop doesn't make much sense.
Why not?
Because by raising, you're just making the pot bigger for the all-in that's probably coming anyway, which then puts you, the raiser, in an awkward spot, potentially facing a marginal call for more chips.
The better play is
Elegance and restraint, really. If you don't have a good hand yourself, just fold. Let the short stack battle someone else.
Yeah.
If you do have a decent hand, maybe just call the existing big blind.
keep the pot smaller until they make their almost inevitable shove.
Precisely. Raising just complicates things against a predictable opponent. That kind of restraint. It's a perfect poker parallel to Stoic self-control.
It really is. It's about understanding what your opponent has to do based on their situation and adapting smartly, not just trying to force your will inefficiently.
Which brings us back beautifully to the power of observation. Knowing the math for a 7BB stack is one thing.
But knowing the player holding that stack is another level.
Totally. Tournament poker, at higher levels, it's less about the cards you hold and much more about psychological observation. The coach emphasized, you must silently gather data.
Who plays tight? Who seems nervous when they bluff? Who folds under pressure easily?
It uses the exact same cognitive skills you use in everyday human interaction, just accelerated it under pressure.
The source even mentioned specific player types, like identifying short stack avatars. He named one Pacer Joey, who, based on their play style and stack size, you can almost predict will shove soon.
And this is where Norman's real-life skills could be a huge asset.
We already heard he accurately profiled his friend Mikhail, sensing that 810 internal suffering.
Right, so if he can read the subtle cues and internal state of a friend that well, he can absolutely apply that psychological insight at the table.
Reading Pacer Joey. Is Joey playing desperately, shoving any 2 cards? Or is he actually playing a calculated tight range despite being short?
That observation skill, that's often the difference between winning and losing long term.
And finally, the coach brought in direct Stoic applications for preventing tilt, those emotional meltdowns that ruin sessions.
Yeah, he gave Norman specific mental disciplines. The first mantra was, play every tournament like it's your last.
Which doesn't mean play recklessly, right?
No, not at all. It means bring maximum focus and effort to the present moment. Treat the opportunity seriously. It combats that complacency that leads to sloppy decisions.
And the most crucial tactical principle, which perfectly mirrors the philosophical approach to problems, focus only on one decision at a time.
Absolutely fundamental. In a complex tournament, your brain can get overwhelmed thinking about future levels, chip counts, past mistakes.
The Stoic solution is to break it down. Smallest possible action. You're only responsible for the hand right in front of you.
The last hand, it's a sunk cost. Gone. The next hand. Not here yet. Outside your control. Only this decision, right now.
And crucially, accepting external uncertainty. Just accept that, yeah, the power might go out, the poker site could crash, you might suffer a horrible, bad beat.
These things are outside your circle of control. Worrying about them is wasted energy.
Viewing failure purely as data, as a learning moment, not a personal disaster, that completes the Stoic loop for competition.
Every time you bust out of a tournament, it's just information. Every bad decision. A lesson learned, hopefully without attaching a lot of negative emotion to it. That's intellectual resilience applied directly to strategy.
Well, okay. That detailed analysis really brings us nicely to section 4, synthesis and key takeaways. We've gone from existential suffering to chip stack strategy. How do we tie these seemingly very different threads together?
We tie them together completely through the lens of psychological profiling. The coach explicitly praised Norman for his ability to read people in everyday life. He pointed out how accurately Norman profiled Mikhail, sensing that deeper suffering despite Mikhail's successful exterior.
So we're essentially reframing emotional intelligence here.
Right.
It's not just a soft skill for making friends.
No, it's a vital, transferable, competitive skill. Let's make that connection really clear.
Okay, how?
Well, think about it. If Norman profiled Mikhail as someone carrying high internal suffering, an 8 out of 10, he'd know Mikhail is likely under significant internal stress.
Right.
Now, if Mikhail were sitting across the poker table, how might that stress manifest? Maybe he'd want to end the discomfort of each hand quickly.
So either through overly aggressive, maybe desperate shows to just get it over with.
Or the opposite, maybe playing super tight, trying to maintain absolute control because everything else feels chaotic inside.
Knowing that psychological baseline helps Norman anticipate Mikhail's likely actions at the table even before the cards come out. It's predictive behavior based on emotional insight.
Exactly. That synthesis demonstrates that the internal game, the Stoic work on self-control, awareness, acceptance, is the necessary foundation for mastering the external game, like poker.
Okay, so let's distill the key takeaways for you, the listener. First, from the life and philosophy side.
Key takeaway 1, you really have to recognize the profound subjectivity of suffering. Your personal 210 experience is just as real for you as someone else's 810 is for them.
But arguing about who has it worse is kind of pointless, philosophically. Understanding the metric itself is the key to finding the right kind of resilience for each person.
Key takeaway 2, we saw how acceptance and resilience, Norman's fish in the stream idea, can be really powerful tools for dealing with an overwhelming reality.
That acceptance of the external, amor fati, it frees up energy for internal adaptation instead of getting drained by constant social critique.
And key takeaway 3, that practical strategy for life that emerged from the coach's philosophy. Hopefulness plus small daily improvements.
Right. That combination seems key. It keeps you from despair while also ensuring you're systematically building real progress over time.
Okay, now shifting focus to the competitive strategy takeaways, rooted in this Stoic approach. Key takeaway 4, prioritize your technical setup before you compete.
Don't let external stuff like wonky hotkeys or confusing software interfaces mess with your self-assessment of your actual skill. Get the basics right.
Key takeaway 5 is all about observation. Know your opponents. You have to look beyond just the cards they're dealt. Silently gather data on their psychology, their tells.
Identify the different player types, the tight ones, the bluffers, and those predictable situations like the 7BB short stack shove.
And finally, key takeaway 6, which is really a refinement of that Stoic focus on the present, proactively accept the sunk cost of the previous hand.
That's huge. It's a powerful, real-world analogy for cutting losses in poker, in business, in life, and focusing only on the decision you can control right now.
Yeah.
This deep dive really showed, I think, how emotional regulation and sharp competitive strategy are just intrinsically linked.
Definitely. Whether you're dealing with deep existential questions or just a tricky spot in a poker hand, the core blueprint for resilience seems remarkably similar.
Identify what you control, accept what you don't.
And pour all your focus into the present decision. The sources really reveal that mastery in these high-stakes arenas is fundamentally about psychological profiling, understanding human behavior, starting with your own.
So we want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Given that the most successful competitors are often the best psychologists, what's the most important non-technical skill you could focus on developing right now?
Whether it's for a game you play, a crucial meeting at work, or just navigating a difficult life situation.
What psychological profile are you trying to build for yourself, and what insight do you need to gain about others, or even about your own internal state?
Think about those internal metrics, like that 0-10 scale. How do you grade your world? We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Welcome. I'm meeting my poker teacher. I'm already late because I had a Bluetooth issue. I don't have time to introduce actually my book, but I still want you to take a look at it. This is the French version of my book. The link should be in the description, or you just look for the name. It's called Samurai Stoic. Here is the English version, Stoic Samurai. My fourth book, A Stoic Samurai. This is my fifth book in German, Der Weg des Stoischen Daimon. The same book in French, La Voie du Daimon Stoique. Again, the same book in English, The Way of the Stoic Daimon. I have changed the picture of it because this drawing of the philosopher is better than the last one. I've changed the cover since last week. Now I will jump into my call with my poker teacher. Hello, Norman. I'm fine. I met your friend Mikael yesterday. The third time I'm meeting him.
How is he doing?
Well, he's doing quite well now. He's again in Switzerland. Then he will do some training in Finland, if I remember correctly. He's planning to come back to study more in Switzerland. He won't spend much time, like something like 60 days only, then he leaves again. I had a very pleasant discussion with him yesterday.
Yes, you say my friend, but 3 times already. You can say your friend also.
We get along quite well for now. That is awesome.
Yes, I'm happy to hear.
For today, I've done what you asked for. I have logged into the web connection of my casino. I can start a game when we are ready.
Did you test screen sharing it?
It works.
Good.
Apart from that, did you look at the Buddhist video that I sent you? Did you like it? Did you find it interesting? Or haven't you had time until now?
No, I did. I didn't know it was a Buddhist video.
He's Buddhist. He believes in karma, reincarnation. He is a religious guy. He's a guru, some kind of guru. Did you find it interesting?
A little bit, I guess. I watched it last week. Do you remember what he was talking about in that video?
I've watched this one and I watched a lot of other videos from him. I'm going through the entire material he's uploading. I don't remember exactly what he was talking in this one because I've watched quite a few now. But he was talking about the world, inner peace, but I really have to look it up. I cannot tell you. Didn't mark you specially or have any huge impact on you.
I remember I had some thoughts on it, but then sometimes it's easier if you have like a starting point. For now, I don't exactly remember where to start with when remembering that video. So it makes it difficult for me to remember the thoughts I had surrounding it. If I remember correctly, he was quite critical of the system we live in. Also, the song you sent.
And the song was different, not the same guy. Do you like the song?
The song was not the same guy, but the Buddhist was quite critical of the world we live in.
If I remember correctly, it was one of his critical interventions.
I wish I would have taken a note or something to start the discussion on that. It's tough to remember.
I'm just if it resonated with you, if you found it interesting or if you found but it doesn't resonate much with me. Just your impression of the video.
Well, in general, it's interesting if people have like interesting perspectives on the world. There was some interesting things it said there. Partially, I did like it. Overall, I guess overall didn't resonate too much with me, but I'm not exactly sure why. I often get this impression you're a social critic, basically, in a part, right, with your books, things. But I'm just a human, an ape. Sometimes it's interesting to think about things, but most of the time I'm just in the mindset of accepting or trying to accept however things are, to not have much judgment about things, whether I like them or not, or if they're fair or unfair or stupid or ugly. Obviously, I still have these judgments about things I like or don't like everyone with society, but I'm trying to have less of that. Just take things as they are. That maybe doesn't have much to do with his video. I guess I'll try to watch it again for next time, write something down or watch it before the lesson, because I did watch it many days ago. There was this guy with long hair. He was talking about I don't remember exactly what he was talking about. That's the problem for now. But that's my overall outlook on this, basically, that the world is how it is. I'm just trying to adapt to it. Some people are big thinkers, revolutionary thinkers, where things can change a lot, stuff like that. More like a fish who's just in this current with a bunch of other fish swimming there. I'm just like trying to be with the world or stay with the world as it is. Don't have too many aspirations in changing how anything really is. Or I guess maybe that's to do with hopefulness as well or something. Even one person, I've had these moments a lot when I was younger, when I had some ideas about things. I talked to people. It was difficult always to change even the mind of one person. Almost impossible, it felt like. People are very set in their ways. People are very set in living or thinking the way they are. They're like very deep, strong pattern. If someone's an alcoholic, you could tell him all the facts. You could give him all the scientific research. You could say him all the nicest things in the world. Probably it won't make any difference until one moment he himself decides that he wants to change or something like that. Society is just a billion people like that, essentially, or multiple billions. There has been big revolutions, very influential people who have been able to change a lot of people's minds. Who knows, you might be one of them one day. Maybe you're able to talk or communicate in a way that a lot of people or see a different point of view. That YouTube channel is something like that. Someone who's trying to open the minds of people, change how people think. I don't have too good of a reply on that at the moment.
Norman, I asked the question, not that you tell me exactly what was in the video, but just to get your impression. You gave me that. You did answer the question. I asked you because I talked about it quite long with your friend Mikhail yesterday. For him, it was one of the most important videos he has seen. All the stuff I've recommended him, all the stuff we talked about, this was the most important, the one that resonated the most with him. On our journey, we are at different levels. The next day, we might find it boring. It really depends where we are, what we are looking for. But for your friend, it was really, really important. He immediately replied a lot. We talked about that guy, that guru, Buddhism nearly the entire afternoon. Not only that, we talked about other subjects. But it was the main topic of our discussion yesterday when I met him. He was very interested in that. I asked him the question I like to ask people. If they have to grade a country, the country they live in, if they come to Switzerland, out of 0 to 10, what grade they give. I asked your friend again yesterday. Well, it's the first time that I ask him, but I often ask that question. Because to me, it's important to see what people think, how high or how low they would rate the society they live in, the rules they live under. Your friend answered for Switzerland 10 out of 10. He said, I know no better place. I would give it 10 out of 10. Then I asked, the second question I ask is, how much suffering is there in life? According to him, 0 is no suffering at all, 10 the maximum amount of suffering imaginable. My question is his impression. He has some experience of life. How much suffering does he think he has to endure? He endured until now. How much suffering is there in life? I answered the question and he answered the question also. I'm not sure that I asked you that question actually. Your country, I asked you. You gave me an answer. I don't remember. You did rate Estonia, not Switzerland, since I don't think you have ever come to Switzerland until now. But if you don't mind, it doesn't take too much time. You can quickly answer and then I tell you what he said and what I say. Just
What was the question exactly?
Well, the question is how good you rate your country, the society you live in. 0 is you think it's really bad, it cannot be any worse. 10, it's optimal. It's perfect. You give it the best rating. Your friend thought that Switzerland was a 10 out of 10. That's the first question.
Well, I guess I would give Estonia a 10 out of 10 then, based on my own personal experience. That never really had any issues with people, with law, with education, with anything really. The only problems I've ever had have been some of my own things, like if I park somewhere where I shouldn't park, get a parking ticket, or if I drink too much alcohol, have a headache in the morning or something like that. But in general, I've never really had too much trouble. The education quality is good. People are in general quite nice and smart. Like the weather here, I don't have too many complaints over the country.
Maybe it's an Estonian thing then, to rate a country 10 out of 10.
Well, I don't know if I would rate every country like that. The countries I've traveled to, often I don't feel comfortable. I feel people are different. How to say? People are different in different countries. Sometimes I'm not used to that. But Michael has traveled way more than I have. He seems to really like different countries and cultures. I would guess that's a high praise for him. High praise coming from him, saying that Switzerland is 10 out of 10. Because I guess he wouldn't say that about every country he's traveled to.
What about the second question?
Which was which?
How much suffering do you think a human being you have to endure, or a human being has to endure during his life? A human being would be a bad question, because I don't want you to put yourself in the shoes of a Palestinian or an Ukrainian or anybody else. The cancer patient who will die in 6 months has to endure a lot of pain until then. That's not the point. It's just life. The nausea of existence, or the suffering of existence, pain of existence. How much pain do you think you have to endure? How painful do you think life is, according to your feeling, your experience of life?
That's quite a Buddhist topic, life suffering. Based on my experience, sometimes it seems like it gets easier with every year. Like every year you learn a little bit more about how to live properly, how to have less conflicts, how to have better routine, how to take better care of yourself. That there was more suffering as a child, as a teenager, as a younger adult. There was more worry and stress and things like that for me. Now that could change. Obviously with age there comes new sufferings, but I do believe a lot of suffering is self-caused. A lot of the worries people have or problems, it's not like we can avoid all the sufferings, but the unbearable sufferings people often bring upon themselves. Just unnatural ways of living is how I've done. With not enough physical activity, with too many chemical supplements. It's a good question. I don't know. Sometimes I've certainly had days or weeks or sometimes even longer times where life seems very difficult and almost unbearable. But thankfully, these times have gone past. I mostly think during those times we'll see about the good stuff that happened, the nice moments, that my best moments in life could be ahead of me. I don't know what will happen in 3 years or 7 years, but that helps with life to have this hopefulness that something good could happen in the future. Then the second thing is I try to live an easy life where I don't take on too much that I cannot do. It's a difficult question. I would have to think longer about it because it does seem that there's a lot of suffering for people. A lot of people are unhappy with how things are. I guess my main advice with these things, how I've made my life better, is I just try every day to not make things worse. That's the first thing. Do not make things worse. And then second is if I can make it a little bit better for next day, then having that mindset, things will become pretty good over time. If you're actively thinking about the future, trying to not make things worse, try to make them a little bit better. That's helped me the most. I'm not saying it will help everyone. Weird stuff can happen. Somehow less weird stuff has happened after starting to think like that. Either I'm taking more stupid risks or just being in general more healthy, taking better care of myself. But actually now I remember I was sick for the first week of September. The whole whole week really was a tough week for me. It did seem very difficult at that time, but I guess the good news for me is I have these moments not very often. Maybe like, what could it be? 10 really bad days a year where it feels almost unbearable. Then maybe 10 very happy days where it feels like life is best thing ever. Then a lot of normal days there in between. I can deal with 10 bad days. But if it would be more, I know some people feel like most days are very difficult. Then maybe on 1 or 2 days a week are good if they get their Saturday or Sunday. And even that, not always good. Then I would just recommend to try to think of a plan, even if it takes a long time, even if it's 5 or 10 years, to try to find a way that the situation could improve. There's always something that could be done. Even in a concentration, you can make things a little bit nicer somehow. Every bad situation can be made a little nicer. Every good thing could be ruined or made worse. To me, that's an important thing to have in mind, but a difficult question to answer overall. Based on my experience, the past year or a few years have been not too much suffering, actually.
That's great, Norman. Thank you for your explanation and answering, give me all those details. If you could put a number on it, it would be helpful. From 0 to 10, how much suffering you think you had to endure or life throws at somebody in general, without having to be a cancer patient or having bombs drop on your head, without all those extremes or starving to death. How much suffering do you think a human being has to endure, or you had to endure? Your impression of that. You can put a number on it, it would be great. You can change the number next week. You can change every time we meet, you can change the number if you think about it a little more.
I want to say 0, which sounds very dumb. Somehow I want to say 0.
That's all right. You can give that answer if you wish.
I just think that there have been moments where there's a lot of suffering, but it usually, for me at least, doesn't last too long. Or at least sometimes there's been heartbreaks or sadness or things like that that are a long time. It's a good question, really, to reflect on emotions like that. I should do more of that. I think it's always easy to get through with things. It's just now, today, or overall how it has been last few weeks. It's been very good. Such a difficult question somehow to put a number on it. If I think of a very big number, it's kind of like a poker player's thinking. Sometimes you take two extremes of 0 and 10, which seems more plausible. Then certainly there's a lot of difficulties. Well, it's like my mind is able to compute that suffering compared to non-suffering. Well, maybe I'll say something like 2 out of 10 overall. If I take every day that I've lived, if I think of my worst suffering I've ever experienced being 10 and 0 being my best, or no suffering, then there seems to be always a little bit of suffering every day, but it's usually not too much. I would say 2 for now.
Great, thank you for answering. Now, take a guess. I make it even harder for you, since you like when I make it hard for you. Guess, what do you think your friend Mikhail answered to the same question?
Maybe like 7.
How come such a difference? Why do you think that you give it 2 and he gives it 7?
Well, based on that you said he liked that Buddhist video, I think that was kind of a pessimistic video if I think about that. If that really touched him, this video resonates more with sad feelings, is how I see it. Then in general, Mikael is quite serious, isn't often laughing or joking or smiling. Some people might be laughing a lot, but still feel very unhappy inside. But overall, Mikael seems more of a serious person. Maybe it's a bad guess, but that's the first thing that came to mind. At least I would think. Maybe 7 was too much.
Great, thank you for playing the game. Now, since we talked about Mikael, what about me? How do I answer that question?
Maybe you'd answer something like 6 out of 10. Earlier in your life, you felt something like 9 or 10 or 8 at least. But things have improved for you. You certainly feel more content with your life than you did when you were younger. At least that's the impression I have. But I would say 6 if you take everything combined. Maybe you put a lot of emphasis on the experiences you had when you were younger. Part of my low rating is I'm somehow thinking that the future will be great. I'm very trying to be optimistic about the future, somehow getting better and better. That's why I'm not thinking much about my past or childhood issues. I'm sort of forgot about them in a way where, but if thought more about them, then I guess you could have a different impression. I would guess 6.
Great. Overall, your answers are very good. I'm surprised at how good they are. You didn't pick the exact answer, but everything made a lot of sense. It shows me that your capability of judging your opponent or the people you interact with, like on a poker table, and seeing how good they are, how they act, if they're on tilt or not, try to understand a lot about them. Your capability of creating a correct psychological profile is impressing. Your friend Michael answered actually 8, worse than you thought. He thought life, you have to endure a lot of pain. 8. I was really surprised because I told him, how come if you think there is a perfect country on earth like Switzerland, you give it 10 out of 10? Why then do you think there's so much suffering in life that you judge it 8 out of 10? It was surprising to me. The second, for me, I gave an answer that was close to his, but not exactly his. My answer is the suffering is between 7 and 9.
I still underestimated a little bit your answers, I guess. But
No, but it was very good. You explained very well that in the past I would have judged it much higher. Now I can put that number lower. It was correct. You said a lot of things that make sense. And between 6 and 7, there's not so much of a difference. You came quite close.
it's a fun game. Well, tell something about how optimistic or pessimistic people are in general.
But I'm not pessimistic about life. That's what people don't get. I'm not pessimistic about life.
You might be realistic then.
It depends how you define pessimism. I wouldn't say that I'm pessimist. People are smart. People can find a solution. It's also what I told your friend Mikhail.
It's also the great thing about that question is it's your experience. It can be any number. It's how you've experienced how life has been to you.
I've listened to that guru we are talking about. He said something interesting, and I want to bring it up because my consciousness is still working on what he said. In one of his videos, he said, if you're looking for nirvana, if you want to be enlightened, that actually means that you're not happy with what God gave you, that you want a way out of life. He thinks that that is presumptuous to think that it is not good what God has created for us. And for some reason, even though the Buddhists aren't against suicide, for some reason, he said, if you still want to live or don't put an end to your life, well, that's not actually what he said. It's hard for me because I don't have his words exactly. But the idea was that suicide is not good. It should not be chosen since it is a gift. Here was the train of thought. Since life is a gift of God that he gave us, if we reject it, then we are not grateful for the present he gave us. I think it was something like this. And here our opinions diverge because the present that God or nature has given us, we can give it back to her. As soon as we don't want it anymore, we can just give it back. We don't have to live it until the end of the line. We can stop it wherever we want. And I don't think that neither nature nor God is offended by it. I think the opposite, that he knew that we will go through horrific situations, unbearable circumstances. He didn't want us to be in a situation where we have no door out, where we cannot say enough is enough, it stops here. He isn't offended by it if we give him back the present he gave us. That's the point where we diverge. Now, at the same moment, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. He talked about a monk during the Vietnam War, The monk, you can find him online. You can Google it on YouTube and see what happened. He was protesting against the Vietnam War. There are two monks actually who did that, if I'm not mistaken, but he talked about the first one. You see him sitting in his meditative position in the streets. His disciples are all around him. They pour gasoline over his body, light him up. He dies without making the slightest sound. Without that, you can see any agony or any pain. He didn't flinch. He didn't move until his body was petrified, turned into carbon. Then he just fall to the side. People around him were praying for him. He proves that he accepts actually suicide, that they actually do. Then in some circumstances, they will choose it because they think it's the right thing to do. You can look it up if you don't believe me. It is on YouTube.
No, I have heard of it. Yes, it's pretty strong self-control to be still quiet when enduring so much pain. Well, if you meditate or do things these monks do, that's like a practice. For example, if you do stillness meditation, you're practicing every day, couple of hours to be uncomfortable dealing with that feeling. I guess it's possible to get very good at dealing with uncomfortableness. I would say it's only the person in that situation, how they're feeling internally, will know if they can endure it or not. It's easy for someone else to say you shouldn't do it when you're not feeling the way the other person is feeling, such as every person's very different. It's very difficult to even imagine or know how another person might exactly be feeling within them. Something might seem that they're suffering, but how big is that suffering? That could be much greater than you could anticipate. The worst days I've had where I've had like pain or toothache or something that was very uncomfortable. If I had to endure that every day for the rest of my life, that would be very difficult. I wouldn't be sure I would be able to endure it if it was so tough all the time. I think it's some ways even not a moral thing. It's just that it might be difficult for some people in some moments. Even if it's against their morality, they still might have to do something just because it's too painful otherwise. Somehow cannibalism comes to mind, which is a very weird comparison, but there's been cases where people are starving, then they eat another person. You might think you wouldn't be a cannibal, but if you're really starving, the instinct to do that could possibly be very strong at that moment. But certainly it's a difficult topic, and you've also put a lot of effort into dealing or thinking about these topics. Most people, it's not like this isn't such a difficult topic for most people. Or for me, it's just that most people live more that they're not meditating about death, or they don't want to hear about it or talk about it. It's sort of a way of avoidance.
Great. Thank you for taking an interest in it, listening to me without interrupting me, even if I talk about a difficult subject. Would you like to talk about anything else, or do we jump to poker?
Somehow my mind is very still at the moment. No thoughts really come to mind. I guess it's good time to get into poker then. Maybe you could play a tournament. I will take some notes. Then if it doesn't bother you when playing, you could comment on what you're thinking or something like that. But sometimes it takes too much effort to talk at the same time. You don't really have to do it. We could move it to later as well. But I would do that now to screen share that Bet Online tournament, then I'll observe, get a better sense of the pawn pots, which is a big part of why to review it in general, to see the opponents, the speed of play, everything, how you're doing there.
I try to do my best with the information available. We'll see how it goes.
Like always, good for a tournament. That's a Stoic concept. Every day to live like it's your last day with this tournament. I would want you to take this mindset of, if this was to be the last tournament you ever play, which every tournament could be, we never really know that. Possibly meteorite comes, something happens, war happens, electricity goes out, Bet Online goes bankrupt. All these things, although unlikely, are not impossible. That's a helpful mindset. Should avoid help with recklessness in play. Just give your best effort. That's what I'm trying to say.
I try to comment on what I'm doing. You can interrupt whenever you want, but if the discussion is longer, it's hard to concentrate on what you say and the game at the same time.
Yes.
So we'll see what's possible. You have some experience with it, what to do. We have to wait until the tournament starts. We have to wait until there are 8 players.
You could still screen share.
When it starts, it will open a new window. You won't see it until I share it. But I'll show you the lobby. Now we find out if it really works. It does.
Yes, looks like you're registered. There's 3 other players there. 4 out of 8 registered.
What would you like to see?
Just looking at what options there are here. Heads-up tournaments. Have you ever accidentally entered one of these?
I've played a couple. You see only that because I did put some filters on. You don't see any game that is more expensive or less expensive. You don't see the Obama game or the satellite games. There are tournaments, cash games, windfalls.
Could you click on the first tournament? Just one click on it. I'm looking at the prize pool, things like that here. 10 seconds per action and also 10-second time back, which is not very long. That is true. 8% fee per tournament, 150 entry, but 12 cents goes to the fee, which is 8%, which is, I guess, industry standard is around 5 to 10%. It's normal, that 8%. It's called 8 bomb. Can I see what filters you have? You've turned off the 9 or 6 player games. Are there any or not? If you enable 9
There's
or
6, there's no 9 player. For this, now we have minimum 1 and maximum 2. If I go higher or lower, maybe I find more.
Okay.
But between 1 and 2, the buying, between 1 and 2, there's no 9, but there is 6 and there's no 4.
There is 6 player one. Could you enable it so I could see the 6 player lobby? We can disable it later. Actually, this one, not a bomb pot one. It's a mystery bounty one. It's a whole different format where you get a reward for knocking a player out. Interesting that they have this format here for 6 players. You could disable the filter for 6 players now.
I don't play 6 because 6 is not much opponents. It's more interesting to go through all the levels and see more people entering, more people exiting. 6, it's a little small. I like it more when there are 8 people around the table. Do you have a preference regarding the amount of people, the amount of opponents?
Do I have what regarding that?
Do you like more playing games with 8 opponents or 6? Just 8 is more like a tournament. 6 is close to a heads up, or there are just less people around. I like it more if there are all the stages of a tournament. I get less the impression that I get that with 6 players.
I don't really have a strong preference either way. Tournaments are, yes, more commonly actually 9-player tournaments are the most common actually. 8 is quite close to it. Online cash games are usually 6-player ones. That's where the 6 and 9 players are the most common games.
It will start very soon.
Yes, exactly. 1 player away. While we wait for that, could you click on the tourneys at the top?
There's some filters, but we can take them off if you want.
These are all satellite tournaments. If you click on the cash game, the other big tab there, exactly.
It starts. Normally they put me always here. This time they put me here because it's the web interface.
If you right click on horse player, sometimes it gives an option sit here if you click with your mouse button.
Thank you. Now it's better for me.
We see horse player started. He might have raised. The interface looks quite nice here, not too bad. It's a quick game, you're right. A lot of effects as well. Usually I turn off most of these effects from the settings when I'm playing.
I do the same. Here it's the first time I play, so I haven't done it. But normally in the app, they're all turned off.
Wow, a lot of players to this flop. Yeah, quite loose play here. It's very unlikely all of them have a good hand here.
How do I go to big blinds?
Does it change it or not here?
If I click a couple of times, it should change, but it doesn't.
Here you would possibly have to go to the settings for that. Then there's settings for something like gameplay. Convert chips to big blind. The second black bar on the screen.
Why is it not working? But somebody raised, I don't know how many big blinds, but he raised quite a lot. Now have big blinds. Thank you, Norman. That helps a lot.
That's great.
You can see the table.
Yes, perfect. So something I'm thinking about in these moments is I'm just trying to get an impression of what are these players like? Which of these players is loose, which is tight? So far, which have been the most active players on this table?
I can say I was too distracted.
I'll see your first bomb pot. Let's see how that one goes.
Yeah, I don't want to play that.
Yes, I wouldn't either. Good fold. Well, if you don't know who's been most active, think of which player haven't you seen in any pots, or is that also difficult?
I didn't pay too much attention on how they play, but the horse player did get lucky. The player Acer Joy, well, he did get very unlucky. I'm out of 7. I still have a chance in that tournament. I'll have a nice hand, but I get into a very difficult situation. I don't want to play my tournament live on this. I fold.
You know, I think Poker Bat has been one of the players who's been tight. I think that was the first hand they played. They did have a very good hand there.
That goes. I wanted to click, but I ran out of time. I should have played this one. I've played it.
I wouldn't have, because of the dog avatar, Pacer Joey has only 7 big blinds. If you raise your Queen Jack, often Pacer Joey will go all in. And will you really want to call his all in 7 big blinds with Queen Jack?
I pressed enter, nothing happens. I really wanted to go for 5x, but nothing happens. I don't know where I have to press to make it go. I did
I
the
think
right
you have
amount.
to click on the raise button there. That's okay.
I did put the right amount, but it didn't work. No, it's not. I make a lot of mistakes. But it's interesting. I learned something new. I don't mind.
If there's other players who have very few pips, you should be more careful raising, because they often go all in. That where you had Queen Jack. Pacer Joey only had 7 big blinds. He's going to go all in very often. It's good to anticipate that. I folded aces pre-flop for a lot of money even, because I clicked the wrong button or was too slow or had internet issues or something like that. It happens.
I'm not mad about that, Norman. I just have to do the setup correctly, maybe change the animation, all that stuff. It will take some time until everything moves smoothly. We had the issue with the big blinds, but we can do that more. It's interesting. We can do that a couple of times. We can do it today, and if you don't mind, next time, then I'm more used to it and we don't run into all those issues. I think I can create a shortcut so that when I press enter, it goes. But I have just to go into setting and change everything. I have no idea. I hesitated to do an all-in, but I don't have the shortcut.
Unless you want to, if you don't sit in, you can't play the next hand. You shouldn't worry about it. It's already in the past. That focus is one. That ace 4, it was close. You didn't have much big blinds, but you had 5 opponents. They seem pretty gambling. It was okay to fold. Don't really worry too much about that. Just worry about this hand. And good, this hand played well. Last hand was played well.
You will see one more all in and then it's over, unless I get lucky.
Don't worry about that at the moment. Let's just take one decision at a time.
And if this time I find the all in button, do I have to put the slider all the way until I go into setting and make a shortcut for it?
There's also buttons below slider where you could click where it puts you at the end of it. There's like a pot button at the slider. Or you can click at the end of the slider as well.
I have to call this. I don't think I can fold. Can I fold? I don't think so. Now can I have nothing left? But he probably beats me. King 2 suited. I have to do this. I did get lucky. Do you agree with me doing that? Yes. Are you still there, Norman?
I am. Just focus on playing. Who is your main opponent at the table?
This guy. Nerdy guy.
Exactly. Focus on him.
Would have been nice if one of them did get eliminated.
But didn't happen. Still, let's continue as it is.
See, I wanted to do an all-in, but I still don't know how to do my all-in. What to press.
Just click on the pot button at the slider. There's a button there. Then click on that.
No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted all-in. He didn't do the all-in. I still haven't figured out how to do all-in.
Didn't make a difference.
But I still don't know what to press.
There's a max button there next to the...
I press max, but now what do I press? All in, whatever. Max, all in. Whoa. Normally I only press enter and it goes. I press 0 for all in, enter to make it go. That's my shortcut. I wanted to fold anyways. I did bluff, but...
I think you bluffed too big. I think you could have bet smaller there, but it worked.
Second, amazing. It was very lucky. I did so many mistakes. It's a miracle that I make it second. We don't have to make a review history this time. We can do it next time. It doesn't save my hand. It won't show up in Poker Tracker. If I play online, it doesn't save my hand. If I get some time, I can fix it. Here it has 2 options. game history and hand history. One of them will do what I want, but now it is blocked because when I do the shortcut, he will tell me that he blocks. You can see. Do you see that pop-up window has been blocked? Then you see the table, like in Poker Tracker. But I'll fix it next time it works.
That's good. Close the settings. You can stop screen sharing. I did take quite a few notes. There were multiple hands to review as well. What's the main thing? The main thing is I got the impression that it's very quick. The time back you have 10 seconds, but that you lost quite early. Later, you only had no time bank, then just 10 seconds per decision. To me, it seemed like looking at the ranges takes too much time. I would really recommend you to start playing without looking at the ranges. Now, that will make you more inaccurate, but you should more or less by now have some idea of if the hand is in a range or not. If you're unsure, then after the tournament, you can review, see if you made the correct play or a mistake.
I hear you, Norman. We can stop. Thanks a lot for coming back and saying goodbye. And I see you next week. I understand. I have to fix the issues with the casino and make it work. And today is a very bad indication of my ability as a poker player because everything went wrong. I didn't even know what to press to make an all-in. But next time I figure it out, I create all the shortcuts and the table will open. We can then afterwards review a hand if you want. Next time it should work better. Today was just a trial to see if we can do that from time to time. But next time it will be better.
No, today was interesting. I have a bunch of notes which I'm looking forward to discussing with you next time on what I noticed about pool pots, all that stuff.
Sounds great. No, I wish you the best. Thanks a lot for coming back. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.